So my stepdad died in June at 93 years old after a very robust life. And you know what? He was not happy about it. He was not happy that death was coming. And it brings up such an interesting fact that death is coming for us all. And there's no hiding. It's coming. And it's an interesting thought. And I love that. Imagine a conscious contact with God so strong that no matter what you are doing or not doing, that no matter what your kids are up to or not up to, and that whether you've got the person of your dreams or they're just not cooperating, that you are happy, content, and at peace. A space where everyone else's thoughts, attitudes, and actions are beautiful and exactly as they are supposed to be. Well, this is the space where I like to play. My name is Mischa Z, and this is today's Bitch Slap. Join me as I shed light on the thoughts, actions, and attitudes that are causing you pain, and we train our minds to go to the capital S inner self, the joy that is waiting for us, the God within. So my friend called me this morning, a friend that I get to mentor in regards to spiritual matters, and he was pretty shook up. You know, he's 63 years old, 65, somewhere in there. Some blood work done from the doctor, perhaps a non-curable or fixable blood issue that can cause some problems, but may or may not be life-threatening. So that's always interesting news to get. But he was a bit shook up, as is to be expected, whenever we get confronted with our mortality, but it was super cool. Because instead of focusing on perhaps what the doctors may or may not have done and when not the doctors may have not done or done the right thing, or all these things, all this stuff that comes into our minds. Should have done this, should have had this checked then, on and on and on. And oftentimes actually ignorance is bliss. Like sometimes it's better not to know, perhaps, that you have a non-threatening blood disease or so then you just don't have to worry about it. But anyway, another digression, which I'm gifted at. So we're talking, and it reminded me of Bob, my stepdad, who was such a beautiful beacon of light for me in my life. So when I was about 13 years old, my parents had been divorced, 6-7 years by then, and I was definitely in a tumultuous state of life. My mom meets Bob, and he is, after my parents, Bob is a force of calm, peace, stability, and just acceptance for me that I was able to see and take in, and over the years, Bob was awesome, man. He would support my what would seem to be crazy little business ventures. He definitely lent me money a few times as I created these little businesses, and by the grace of God, I was able to pay him back for those. Because usually there'd be a little success there. So where other people were like, what are you thinking? He'd always pony up a little cash and give me a shot. So thank you, Bob, so much for that. Bob also, had a biological daughter, Lori, another beautiful soul, and Bobby, who he adopted along the way, which is crazy. What's crazy about Bobby, love Bobby too, another scientist mind. Bob was a scientist, and Bobby Jr. Definitely it's so interesting because although he was adopted, he looked exactly like Bob, still does look exactly like Bob, and is a genius like Bob, and and you know, like helped create DNA sequencing and all kind of stuff. So, God bless you, Bobby. But so I'm always shocked, or not shocked. I'm always surprised that Bobby's adopted. So the universe is a strange place. But anyway, Bob, was the head of the physiology department at Berkeley for 40 or 45 years. Made massive progression on the sickle cell anemia disease. Wrote books and created cool software, and just was a sweet man, and just got to have cool women in his life and traveled the world and hung out with Nobel Prize winners, and like, what a cool, rad life, right? And so, as it is these days, due to advances in our healthcare system and genetic stuff and all those kinds of things, now as adult males and women, I'm assuming, but instead of dying a slow death from your mid 50s or 60s and having a gradual decline, we get to live much more robust lives till later in life, 80s perhaps, but then all of a sudden the decline can be very quick. And so I've read some cool studies on that and stuff, so we can assume that is true. But Bob hit that rapid decline, and then about 2 weeks before he died, and now this is my perception of it. It could be totally different. It'd be fun I'll have to talk to Lori about it at some point, but this is what I saw. After having a full, amazing, robust life, many of the things that I have thought and still can't think are the keys to a full, beautiful life, good career, kids, money in the bank, houses, all these fun things to leave your kids when you die, traveling, all this stuff, and old age, like to live to a ripe old age of 93. Fact of the matter is, 2 to 3 weeks before he's going to actually die, his body completely shuts down and he can't get out of bed. And he's pissed off. And he's pissed off at people. He's like, hey, man, you got to get these physical therapists in here and get them to heal me up so I can get out of bed. And it's like, well, Bob, got some kind of bad news for you, or some interesting news anyway. You ain't getting out of bed. Right? This is the end. And he was not happy about it. He was not stoked. He was confronting death, and he was pissed. And he was letting a few people know now and then, which is so interesting, right? And I had already been meditating on the thought that, we have it in our head that long life equals good life. Long life equals good life. And that somehow will provide us solace when we go to meet our maker and is presented with the idea that, hey, long life doesn't necessarily equal good life. Like, short life can be good life. Like, life can just be good, and the length of it's got nothing to do with it. And I love that thought, and I love that concept. And then there's Bob, pissed that after 93 years of what I saw as an amazing, inspirational life, pissed that it's ending. And I'm not begrudging Bob at all. I have no doubt that if I'm gonna die and I get to come at it that way versus my dad, who just had a heart attack out in the woods. He was out in the woods hiking, doing what he loved. Blam, heart attack, dead, right? That's kind of a cool way to go. But anyway, so Bob's Bob did find peace. So for a couple, let's say 10 of the 15 days he was mad, and then he just, he found peace. So I did get to see him find peace too. And I don't know why I'm hedging and all this stuff, but I guess it's in my nature. But it kind of shook me up. Seeing Bob be upset like that, it was like, man, like death is coming for us all. And how are we gonna like better to face it now, perhaps, than later? And what really shook me up was I thought I had it in my head that when Bob would pass away, that he would just be like smiling, like, yeah, man, I had a great life. And anyway, I'm going to let all that part of the story go now. And so here's the rest of the story. About 8 years ago now, almost actually to the day as I record this podcast, my mother passed away of cancer. We knew that was coming, and so that happened. So it wasn't sudden by any means. But 2 weeks later, my father died of a heart attack, as I said, out there in the woods of Wyoming, in the mountains. Hiking Glory Bowl. Anybody who's been to Jackson, Wyoming will may be familiar with Glory Bowl, but it is a beautiful area, and my father was a mountain man. And I guess the other thing that was cool about my father's death, at 70, he was 73 years old, healthy as an ox, definitely freaked people out because they were like, Sandy Z is going to live forever. And then he's hiking Glory Bowl. He's with his new girlfriend, Lisa. Hey, Lisa, if you ever hear this, love you too. But he was hiking with Lisa, and, they had been dating about 6 months, and it was that brand new puppy love, and all is good. And that 6 month time frame when that initial, new relationship can be so beautiful. So what a lucky way to go. Doing what he loved and in love, brand new love with a new person. And so anyway, mom and dad die in rapid succession. My career's in massive upheaval. I've just gotten divorced, just all this stuff. And I'm shook up, man. The reality of life that, perhaps you'd like to call that a midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. It's staring me in the face. And Ken, my spiritual mentor at the time, this is what he tells me. He's like, hey, Mish, you should meditate on death. And meditate on death. And so I've done a lot of meditating on death and writing and a lot of work around it. And death, I see death in a new way. And what is really cool is that I now believe people when they tell me that they see death in another way. And there's this great line. It's either in the Bhagavad Gita or the Yoga Sutras, because I love me some yogic stuff. But the line is, in effect, or the thought is that until you confront your thoughts around death, you cannot get a picture of what's past it. And that was absolutely true for me. And if anybody ever said to me, oh yeah, I believe something else, or death's not that big a deal, or we are not our bodies, or all these things, I was like, that's baloney. There's no way you can believe that, because I couldn't comprehend it at all. I had that massive contempt prior to investigation. And so this is a funny podcast for me because it's kind of not gone exactly where I thought it was going to go. But I can tell you that the fact that I can talk about death and the fact that I can talk about God and the fact that I can talk about the concept that death is actually not real. And will gladly go deeper into that, and I hope to have many opportunities on podcasts moving forward, is tremendously freeing. And to be able to wear life like a loose garment, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm going to sum up with this, and I'm sure I'll go back if I ever get to when I hear this episode and be like, oh yeah, I missed this, and that point. But my friend who I talked to this morning, it was so beautiful to see, because he was super shook up at the beginning of the call. And then I was able to say, hey man, my stepdad Bob, 93 years, what could be perceived as the perfect life. He was still pissed and not happy that it was ending as he knew it. And so perhaps the answer here is to meditate on death and do some work around that. And let's look at that fact. And you know what? At the end of our conversation, he was at peace. My friend who called me this morning, at least for the moment. Right? And I still absolutely have my moments. But to me, that is a beautiful thing. Thank you for spending time with me today. As someone who is committed to growth and service to this world, I so appreciate your willingness to come with me, go within, and serve our world through change. If you found value in this podcast and you know someone who can use this message, share this episode with them. Share it so our mission can be achieved one episode at a time. And of course, subscribe so you can hear more. And lastly, for more resources on what has helped me on my journey and can help you on yours, go to belove.media/resources. That's BELOVE.media/resources. Thank you again for listening.